Many of you watching this video will have begun playing in the last few months, maybe last year or even 2020, but how many of you played in 2018 or even before then? Sea of Thieves began as a barren game. While the gameplay loop was amazing, especially with friends, there was actually very little to do on your adventure. There were 3 voyage types: digging up chests with the Gold Hoarder, hunting cursed crews with the Order of Souls, or catching animals and delivering them to the Merchant Alliance. Oh, and Athena Voyages, which we don't talk about. The main way of earning your bread was through skull forts, which were fought over for hours and hours, and things got really bitter and very emotional. These were the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. However, this was it, and the game was criticised heavily for it. Rare did expand the AI threats for the Hungering Deep and Cursed Sails in May and July respectively, which brought Megalodons and skeleton ships into the fold. The latter even brought in a new ship type, the Brigantine. Then of course we had some build rat adventures which added new enemies, activities and mechanics. In September we got the Forsaken Shores update, which added the rowboat, a new voyage being cargo runs and a whole new region to explore. Also really tedious fiery volcanoes, geysers and earthquakes. These updates were flashy, they were exciting and they were fresh. They brought new ideas to the table, making these the cream of the crop in Sea of Thieves history. Now I may be a Hungering Deep fanboy, but objectively speaking, 2018's best update was yet to come. It's fair to say Shrouded Spoils was more of a reserved update, all things considered, but it did something that hadn't really been done before and hasn't really been done since. It took older content which lacked replayability or even purpose and gave it a new lease of life, and some of this stuff was even mechanics introduced in the year 1 patches such as the Hungering Deep and Cursed Sails. On paper, it sounds like it sucks, right? Just rehashing new content? Well yeah, who really cares about recycling content? This wasn't so much a fault of fortune or fate of the damn job as it was taking old content, repurposing it and adding a twist to boot. I really thought Season 5 would do that, which I will talk about later in the video. One of the simplest yet effective changes was adding loot to encounters such as the Megalodon, the Kraken and breaking the mermaid statues. Yes, before this update, if you killed a Meg or Kraken, your reward was not sinking. You didn't get anything else. So what did people do? They ignored them and continued on, hoping the Megalodon would leave them alone. Such a simple change was included, and that was just rewarding us for our encounters with loot. Even then, Rare went one better and introduced 3 other types of Megalodon too: the Crested Queen, the Shadow Maw, and the Ancient Terror. Not only did this refresh the encounter with new variants, you got a decent pile of loot for killing one too. The Kraken's tentacles also dropped loot, which was a much needed improvement, even if it was a challenge to gather each piece. For your reward, you were also challenged for it. The Kraken gained its new slap attack. Again, the Kraken would only wrap the ship or suck you off before Shrouded Spoils. Anyway, it was a very simple way of buffing the Kraken and made her feel that much more of a deadly threat. And don't forget the skull forts. Of course, we had the introduction of the new fleets for our world event content, but Rare didn't let them make the older version obsolete. Remember how they took the old Megalodons, added a new piece of variety and then added a reward too? They did exactly the same with skull forts. See, back at launch you could only find skull forts at Skull Keep, Keel Hall Fort and the Crow's Nest, which was around a third of the forts on the map. Rare made it so the forts could spawn at any fort, so an additional 6 added this time. Then they went ahead and buffed the loot by adding a new type of chest, a new merchant item and overall goodies to the bag. And you saw it in the thumbnail, one of the best tools they've added to the game: the Stronghold gunpowder barrel, the mega keg and the nuke, whatever you want to call it. Not only was this an immensely valuable item in the scope of Sea of Thieves 2018 economy, but you could use it to end a fight in one calculated move. It spawned montages and clips galore, which is really impressive for a small change. Who would have thought that making a keg, but bigger, would have created so much scope in the sandbox? Not only that, but the skeleton ship got a new fleet location in the Devil's Roar and the Skelly sloop was introduced. So not only did they expand their older content, but they did it with their recent stuff too, both making skeleton ships better and the Devil's Roar better. We got the fog too, which was a lovely feature, although we never saw new weather effects added again. It's always nice to see it appear in game though. Finally, can anyone tell me what's wrong with this ship? Nope. Anyone? That's right, it has the basic capstan, cannons and wheel. This was your ship before Shrouded Spoils. You couldn't customize any of those items before it dropped, which is comical when thinking back on it. My point is, Shrouded Spoils didn't add a whole lot of new content, but it did sow the seeds of making the gameplay loop more rewarding and satisfying, with the biggest new addition being the Wailing Barnacle. The closest we've ever come to this again was Season 5, and even then, the only Shrouded Spoils feature we got was the ability to load and unload storage crates at the press of a button. Towards the end of the year, I would like to see a true Shrouded Spoils 2.0, and you guys will agree with me as to why. Rare's focus on adding lots of new content, being it new areas to explore, new activities, or even new voyages, which is superb. But some of it has been superseded by better versions of similar content, like the Faction Voyages or soon to be the Legend of the Veil. Or even then, some content that gets added just has no reason to return to it outside of commendations, like the Devil's Roar or Sunken Kingdom. Instead of splashing out and dumping a load of roleplay features, or even stuff just for a quick rush, I would love Rare to return to some old content and bring that up to scratch, so it doesn't sit untouched. I would love to see a rebalance to the original company Voyages, making them more profitable, bring them up with their new counterparts, and bringing variety back to Voyages themselves. Bolts, Lost Shipments, and Ghost Ships are all more profitable and efficient than treasure maps, animal/cargo runs, and skeleton bounties, especially when you consider how much RNG is involved in the old ones. Make them less RNG focused, add more loot to them, and spice them up with things like higher chances of cursed chests, skeleton lord spawns after killing the other captains, or new animals to capture. Another thing I would love to see is an update to the Sunken Kingdom. The treasuries are fine as is, but are only really worth it when you get a bottle bounty. I'd love to see a faction that only accepts sunken loot, which grants you some merfolk themed cosmetics, or my favourite possible change, making the Breath of the Sea turn you into a mer temporarily. So you're rewarded with a tool that can be used rather than sold, just like the Mega Keg. Finally, the Raw needs some sort of incentive, because it's Ash and Athena heaven over there and there's really not much else to do. I would love to see some new content that you can only do in the Raw, but have no idea how they can improve it, without removing the tedium or juicing the rewards. Maybe the latter is the best option for a quick fix. Lastly, it would be nice to have the Skull Forts buffed again, with an increase in loot and maybe another addition like the Mega Keg, something that can bring it up to the value with the other world events, as it's quite pitiful at the moment. Seriously, they're not really worth it at the moment, unless you want to get rid of them so a new world event spawns. In summary, Shrouded Spoils is the update that made your experience in Sea of Thieves that much more enjoyable, and you probably would expect most of those features to have been added at launch or even when the respective content came out in 2018. My point is, we owe a lot to Shrouded Spoils when it comes to updates, especially when it's overshadowed by the big hitters like A Pirate's Life, Anniversary, and The Hungering Deep. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe. More content is coming soon as we approach a very exciting few months for Sea of Thieves. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.